religious reforms and public debates. How did India reach to a place where the religious reforms are being asked by many of them? At the same time, how did the concept of public debates come into India? If you look at the picture in the past, during the modern period starting, we were in a condition where there was a severe criticism towards the existing laws of the Hinduism when it comes to the sati system, when it comes to the child female infanticide, or when it comes to the widows immorality, and all these things are being criticized severely. And these are being the basic things like widow immolation, monotheism, priesthood, adultery. All these things are being seriously controversial issues in the Hindu society. So many of the social reformers started to criticize them, and they want to reform the existing old superstitious beliefs into modern spiritual thoughts which can imbibe human awakening in all the religious aspects. So that's how criticism has been a major part. From that, they want to have a greater reforms in the existing religious pattern and the culture. So this gave a wide scope for debates in favor of the reforms and in against of the reforms. In favor of the reforms and in against of the reforms, we started to have two larger groups. The Hindus, those who are staunch supporters of the old system of Hinduism, started to counter the reformers, saying that this is illegal and these people are talking against the interest of the God. They are going against the will of the God. But finally, these debates are being kicked off, and as we all know that printing has been in a very large scale available at very less cost. So though printing has been initiated in India, we have seen in the previous chapter, the newspapers were also started to come in. So the debates were not done on only one place. It has been done in large places and also in print. So once the debates have been in printed, it started to reach to large number of people. After reaching to large number of people, large number of opinions started to come up. So it indirectly started to connected all the like-minded people together on one side, and also all the opposite-minded people also together on the other side. So that's how the debate became very large. So the debates, when it became public and printed, this has brought the time of the controversies. In the time of the controversies, we can see the controversies can be broadly categorized into social controversies and the religious controversies. When we talk about the issues which are being read out in the society during that period, widow comes under the category of social, widow immolation, monotheism comes under the category of religion, priesthood, religion, adultery, social. So the reforms which are to be brought are a combination of social and religious reforms. So a society has to get updated not only in the societal aspects but also in the religious aspects. That's what the reformers want from the modern ideology. So this ideology started to be a serious deadlock between the communities of Indian society. Later on, if you see, the society got further redivided into two major groups. One is the supporters of reformers, the other one is the opponents of the reformers. One is like Raja Ram Mohan Roy in 1821 started to publish the modern ideology in the book called Sambandh Kaumudi. He started to release a magazine called Sambandh Kaumudi in 1821. His views are modern. He wants to be a reformer. He wants to reform the social and the religious, whatever the deadlocks or superstitious beliefs are there, without any evidences that are being questioned seriously by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, which are inhuman in nature. But counter to this, the Hindu Orthodox Society also released a counter newspaper called Samachar Chandrika. This Samachar Chandrika has been published in 1822. So it clearly reveals for us that in 1821, when Raja Ram Mohan Roy published, counter to this one was published in the favor of all the so-called reforms which are required. They are asking what is the necessity to have a requirement or reforms on the name of Samachar Chandrika in 1822, so that they can have their own supporters. They can educate the people that there is no need to have any kind of reforms which are required by the time now. And later, when we talk about the other newspapers which came into existence, we can see that the Persian newspapers, two newspapers of Persian came into existence. One is Jam-i-Jahan Nama, the second one is Samshul Akbar. These two started to be given in the Persian language, because in the northern part of India we have the influence of Persian traders coming and doing trade for many centuries. That's why Persia has been one of the major languages spoken in North India. And the next, moving on to the Gujarati language. In Gujarati language we have one more newspaper coming up, that is Bombay Samachar. So Bombay Samachar has been published in Gujarati language. And later the Muslims, those who are scared looking at the developments of the colonial period and these controversies which are coming up against the religion, and they started to get afraid, and in order to save their religion under falling of its prestige and its importance, the ulema, the religious guru, started to write or translate the holy scriptures into Persian language, and also the newspapers, and also to publish the tracts which are required for the Muslims to follow in the Islam community. By publishing them in the Persian language, ulema started to do their major contribution, and then they have established the Deoband Seminar or Seminary. This Deoband Seminary is established in 1867. Its main purpose is to issue fatwas to the people. Fatwas are not issued in 1, 2 or 10. They were issued in thousands in order to get people to understand what the knowledge is. Because in this metropolitan society, or what we call the mixed society during that period, where Hindus are being asked for reformation of their laws, so Muslims want to have their hold on their own community. So they started to preach what are the ways that we need to behave when we are in a multi-religious society, and how to safeguard yourself from the influence of the other religions. Later, Hindus started to encourage the books which make Hinduism popular. The first attempt was made by writing Ramacharita of Tulsidas, written around 16th century, got to be published in 1810 from Kolkata. And later we have 1880 Naval Kishore press coming up, and also reliable to a very large extent. So now, after the press has developed, so now we have just discussed that initially there were two groups criticizing the existing religion and some people supporting the existing religion. Those who are criticizing the old monotonous systems or rules which are practiced, which are inhuman, that has to be reformed. That is the main motto of the social reformers. So this triggered for a debate, that too in public, not only in oral but also in print, because of the development of the newspapers. This printing at the time of the controversies have been developed, that can be categorized into social controversies and religious controversies, or social reforms and religious reforms. The social reforms come under the category like widow immolation and adultery, while as the monotheism and priesthood come under the category of religious reformers requirements. So in order to educate the people, in order to make the people to understand what is the necessity to have the changes or to reform the existing laws, Raja Ram Mohan Roy in 1821 published a magazine called Sambandh Kaumudi. So in order to counter this one, and in order to educate the other Hindus and not to allow Hindus to fall into the ideology that reformation is required in Hinduism also, so Hindu Orthodoxy Society started to publish Samachar Chandrika in 1822. Not only this, many other newspapers came into existence, starting from Persian, Gujarati and also the other languages. So the first Persian paper was Jam-i-Jahan Nama and Shamsul Akbara, second one. Whereas the Gujarati one is Bombay Samachar. Well, in the ulemas, they have scriptured the holy scriptures, and they are scared of the colonial government that may destroy the existing integrity and unity of the Muslims also, and they may force the Muslims also to go towards reformation. So they started to turn the Urdu into Persian and the normal Urdu language, so that they can be read by a large number of people in the form of newspaper articles, in the form of tracts and everything. They purposefully established Deoband Seminary in 1867, through which fatwas are being released, and these fatwas are mainly to guide the people when they are in a multi-religious society without falling into influence of any other religion. And Hindus started to develop their own theme by getting some more books which enhance the specialty of Hinduism, like Ramacharita written by Tulsidas, and in 1880 Naval Kishore Press brought some more editions, and this all printing has developed the people, their ideology, their thought process, their way of thinking, their way of getting connected to the people. So earlier people were not able to understand what is the development or what is modernization, but because of the printing, people are able to get connected to large number of people. The different ideologies are widespread, so that you can decide which one is right and which one is wrong. It is not always right to say that printing has brought certain revolutions, but printing has brought change in the mindset of the people. And not only this, when we move aside from these news issues and the hot debates, when we go on to the religious side, the printing has brought many religious people come together of the same religion, because once the books are printed in which the simple language has been used to understand the religious scriptures, they are spread out individually as well as read out in a large where crowd or mass gathering is happened, in order to make them to understand what is actually in the holy scripture books like Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, and all these books. These all has added and brought the people together under one side, and at the same time brought a clear division of people in the different ideologies. But finally, printing has always added for the development of human societies on a larger scale. Now let us move towards the new forms of publications. The new forms of publications, as we all know that printing has reached to excel. It has given a new appetite of writing. Initially, it was written only about the incidents. Later, people started to write about their lives, about their experiences, about the atrocities which are happening, about the problems what they are facing, about the societies what they are seeing, and later on, after slowly development on from the paper and the views of the people, it moved on to the Indian context of Indian traditional system, Indian culture, Indian nature, Indian religious system. All these things started to be written on a wide range, and people started to read it on a very larger scale. So that's how it has given a very good Indian form of styles which started to go on into the people on a larger scale. After the painters, like when these people started to write these things, and the printing press has become a major initiative employment opportunity for many people, especially the wooden people, wooden block people, whoever used to have work with the printing used to be stationed near the printing press, so they were employed there. So that's how they got large employments, and the employment also has been created with the development of printing. And after this, painting has become a major development during this period. Raja Ravi Varma's pictures are being for large masses, where these pictures are being symbol or symbolized for the modern day gods. So that's how people started to get connected with the modern pictures which were of the Raja Ravi Varma by 1870s and 1880s. And later the cheap prints, after moving from the costly prints of Raja Ravi Varma, the gods pictures, the images, the idols and all, later they started to have the cheap printings of calendars, symbols, astrology, all these things. They started to get it on the cheap prints. And later in 1870s, the caricature and the cartoons are being introduced in the Indian newspapers. After the caricature and the cartoons are being introduced in the Indian newspapers, the people started to understand this one on a very deliberately manner, because the caricatures and the cartoons are being initially given to focus on the rule which was going on against the people. The Britishers' rule has been questioned by using cartoons and the caricatures. Now, moving on to women and print. How did the women's life and how did they enter into the printing sector? Now let us see here. The lives and the feelings of women are being extensively and widely written in all the books. Slowly and slowly, the understanding of women's life, women culture, women pattern, women, how is she being restricted, how is she being tortured, all these things have come into scene and picture, and once they were printed and available in large, people started to question them. So women education has been a serious concern during that period. So most of the liberal husbands who are very friendly and who can understand the modern ideology and who have the feeling of equality towards the men and women, those people started to encourage their wives and their children, especially women children, to have home-based schooling knowledge. So in this home-based schooling knowledge, the girls and the women can know what is actually the knowledge is, what are the Vedas, what are the scriptures, what is the understanding of life and all these things. If they know education, they can read any books. This point has been a difficult point for them to understand for the Hindu Orthodox people as well as for the Muslim Orthodox communities, because the conservatives of Hinduism feel that if the women are getting educated, they would read all the books, that would make them their daughters to become widows. That was a superstitious belief which they used to believe like that, and they never encouraged any of their girl child to get educated. And at the same time, when it comes to the Muslims used to get afraid and scared that in case if woman is getting educated, she would study all the other books of literature in which she may understand what is the process of the family intercourse and all these things. So it may affect the entire family, that may make her to divert from the existing religious patterns. So they always forced her to read only the Arabic language, even though she doesn't know that one, she has to read that one because she does not understand this anything. That's how the people of Orthodox Hindus and the Orthodox Muslim community people used to block the education for the girl child or the woman for a very long period of time in the medieval period or in the early phase of the modern period. Later, Raj Sundari Devi, who has studied secretly the knowledge of writing and reading, and she wrote in her own autobiography called Amar Jiban. Amar Jiban was the first Bengali book written by women in 1876. This was the first official autobiography written by her own self in 1876. In 1860s, we have Kailash Bashni Devi. Kailash Bashni Devi, she also has written one more book encouraging what are the atrocities that are happening against women. She brought into light all the possibilities. So with this, the growth of literature, not only in the local languages, in Madras, in Tamil language, in Punjabi language, in the Bengali language, all these languages finally brought into the point the discussion of the issues like what is women education? How can women education be blocked because of the superstitious beliefs? What about the widow remarriage system? Why widows are being treated like that? And these all efforts are started to be the discussion points and the debate issues for a very larger period of time. Then Ramachadda wrote a book called Istri Dharam Vichar. This Istri Dharam Vichar has been a famous book in the Punjabi language which has been sold to many people, and these people, in order to avoid the people to learn, or especially the women to learn language, though they have the passion to learn language, they started to give some books like Batala. These Batala books are taken by the peddlers, and these books are given for the women to read during their leisure time. That's how the women education has been blocked for many centuries. Initially, many books have come up with the growth of printing technology and knowledge. Lives and feelings of women are expressed widely in the books and these are being spread to all corners. But later, the liberal husbands understood that unless and until women is educated, we cannot have proper education, and family system could not survive properly, the societies would not develop properly. So the liberal husbands started to initiate to give for them home based schooling so that they can learn the language, literature and understand the society properly. But the conservative Hindus and Muslims blocked the education, saying with some blind superstitious beliefs. Hinduism is considered that if a girl is educated, she would remain as a widow. So that is the reason why most of the women are not encouraged to get educated during this period. And when it comes to Muslims, Muslims never encourage any of their girls so that she may be getting the knowledge to read all the other chapters of the Muslim books, so Quran and all. So she may question the atrocities which are happening against her. So they want to stop this kind of growth in the women knowledge. So they always forced her to read the Arabic language, which she doesn't know also, and she can't understand anything. That's how she can spend her time in learning that one and understanding that one. That's how they used to divert the issue. So the first book, which was written as an autobiography by a woman in Bengali, was Raj Sundari Devi. Amar Jiban was the name of the book. It was written in 1876. Next, in 1860s, one more book was written by Kailash Bashini Devi. This also in Bengali only. Later on, the serious issues of topics became in Madras or in Punjab or in all the vernacular languages. That is, why is women education being blocked? What are the major reasons for not supporting women education? The reforms have to be started to get women education, and also widow remarriages, why the widows are treated very insulting manner. That's all the things has to be the serious concerns of the society by that time as per the growth of understanding. So Ramachadda, who has written a book called Istri Dharam Vichar, he also used to spread the views like how a woman should be, what are the ideas that women has to follow. So now they want to make women to understand that to be a very good woman, what are the ideas that has to be followed, what are the vichar means, what are the views that has to be taken, and all these things. In the same way, when women are free, they are encouraged to read the books like Battala, which were taken by the peddlers, who encourage the women to read during their free time to be an ideal woman. And later, coming on to the print and to the poor sections of the community of the people, moving aside from the women to the poor categories of people. Public libraries have been catering all the requirements of the poor people in most of the parts of the Madras. Madras has been one of the main places which gave chance for most of the people to get educated by having public libraries. And acquiring public libraries are found only in cities and towns, and at times in villages, where having a library is a prestigious concept for many of the people who stay in the village. So that's how Madras has started to acquire this knowledge of education to all the people by having these libraries, the public libraries, which are viable and open to more number of people, larger public. The famous books which I have written in order to bring awareness to the people was Jyotiba Phule, who raised his first voice against the social atrocities of the caste system, racial discrimination, that is Ghulamgiri in 1871. He detailedly described what is actually happening in the society, and he wanted to create awareness to the people that there is no difference between human to human. It is only the man-made differences. It's not by the God-made differences. These all things he started to enlighten it, and he also told how seriously the people are being exploited on the name of the caste system. And then the Kashi Baba's written book called Choti Aur Bade Ka Sawal in 1938. In this also we can find how the exploitation has been happening between the same human beings in the name of the caste, religion and all. That's how slowly and started on a steadily basis the awareness towards the spirit of nationalism, the understanding of the growth of the social atrocities or reforms which are required in the field of social and also in the religious fields, and also to eradicate untouchability, to end the caste discrimination. All these things one by one started to come in because of the growth of the printing culture. The ideas started to spread and flow in the entire market of north and south of India. That's how the message of nationalism has to come in. So once the message of nationalism has to come in, means it has to evaporate all the boundaries or the obstacles which are not allowing the Indians to become united. So the message of nationalism started to spread slowly and steadily in the basis of the knowledge or backdrop of development of printing. Moving on to the print and the censorship. So as we have seen, printing started to reach its excel by circulating all the views, all the ideologies, starting from the different views of the people, different books printed in the earlier editions, women and its views, religious feelings, religious awakening, reformers putting their views. Then we have the questioning of social atrocities, caste discrimination, worker and owner discrimination. Workers are made to work for very long hours. These all are being part and parcel of the printing culture, because the issues are being not only debated and left off, these issues are being in print and debated on a very larger scale. That's how the printing started to reach to very large extent. But the most fundamental point what we need to understand here is that in 1798, English East India Company, though English East India Company was knowing the knowledge that printing has been going on in a very large scale in India, but they never were concerned about the idea of having censorship. That too, they came to consider to have censorship only after they found that some of the Englishmen who were questioning the moves and the attitudes of some of the company officials. So the company was worried that if these people are raising the voice against our own company officials, this may be caught by the opposition members in the British Parliament and they may raise their voices against the company. That's how the first restrictions were laid on Englishmen by the English East India Company. This was a very strange point. Later, in 1820s, the Calcutta Supreme Court has passed certain rules and restrictions on the printing media. So once the rules and restrictions are being passed, the British officials continued them and encouraged the pro-British newspapers, so that which will praise the legacy of the British rule. And later, in 1835, urgent petition came from the local and the vernacular newspapers asking about the threat of their newspapers. So Governor General Bentinck revised the press laws with the official name called Thomas Macaulay. He brought, again after a detailed study, brought back the laws which were earlier giving freedom for the printers to print according to their views, especially for newspapers. But after the 1857 First War of Independence or the Revolt of Independence, the people and the British started to take the issues very seriously. In 1878, the Vernacular Press Act was passed on the guidelines of the Irish laws. These Vernacular Act laws are forbidding the people to publish anything without the knowledge of the government or the officials. In case if it is threatening to the authority or provoking anything against the government, that can be stopped or blocked by the government according to this law. This has been one of the key reasons why the revolutions became larger and wider. That is, for example, when the Punjab revolution happened in 1907, where it was crushed off in a very hard manner by the British officials. In a sympathetic attitude, Bal Gangadhar Tilak wrote in his newspaper Kesari, expressing his sorrowful nature towards the way it happened and the way the people are treated. So Bal Gangadhar Tilak was warned, and this warning also caused that he was imprisoned for this act in 1908. With the imprisonment of Bal Gangadhar Tilak, the issue became very large, scaling of protests against all corners of India. That's how the print and the censorship also contributed for the growth of nationalism spirit in India. Let us see that in detail. In 1798, English East India Companies were not at all worried or bothered to have the restrictions or censorship. But when the Englishmen started to make certain satirical jokes and started to question the attitudes of some of the Englishmen, then English East India Company seriously restricted and put censorship on the same Englishmen who were writing the news. Later, in 1820s, for the first time, Kolkata Supreme Court has advised and passed certain regulations for the newspapers. In 1835, with the growing demand of the vernacular newspapers and the local newspapers, the Governor General of that time, General Bendick, has asked Thomas Macaulay to reformulate the existing press laws. So, Thomas Macaulay brought the previous laws into existence by doing some minor changes. That's how the laws have been again replaced, so to get the freedom. But after the 1857 revolt, the Britishers were very serious and they brought the act called 1878 Vernacular Act on the guidelines of the Irish Act. According to this act, they shall warn a person who is writing anything against the interest of the Britishers, and also it can cost an imprisonment for them. So that's how the first one, Punjab Revolution, which was done and it was crushed by the Britishers in 1907. Bal Gangadhar Tilak in his magazine called Kesari expressed this one with a sorrowful attitude. With this, Bal Gangadhar Tilak was brought into imprisonment in 1908, which triggered the protests on a very large scale in the entire nation. That's how the print and the censorship also contributed for the growth of the spirit of nationalism among the diverse, divided cultural people of India.
If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.